Thousands of anglers are at the Namibian coast this year, hopefully, in search of the big one. Angling species include the sought-after kabeljou, galjoen, blacktail and steenbras. Now, although the sea barbel is despised by many an angler, it is considered a delicacy when smoked. Joining us now is local businessman and expert in fishing, Jorge Walter, to speak to us about recreational angling, overfishing, and a lot more. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning, Denver. Good morning, Namibia, fellow anglers.
Very well. Your LinkedIn profile states, and I'd like to quote, under activities and societies, it reads as follows: fishing, 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 fishing. Does that pretty much summarize who you are?
That pretty much summarizes who I am. I've been fishing since about 3 years old.
Sure.
Can remember sitting between my dad's legs and reeling in the fish. I was too small to hold the rod myself. So I've been fishing for about 55 years.
Wow.
And if people ask me, do I fish a lot? I say yes, too much, but not enough.
But it doesn't land you in trouble at home or
No,
elsewhere.
I've got a very understanding wife, fortunately, and she lets me go fishing whenever I want to.
Please tell us more about yourself.
I was born in Swakopmund, German origin. Raised in Walvis Bay, went to Grahamstown, Rhodes for 4 years for formal education in ichthyology and fisheries science. Came back, started an oyster farm, did that for about 7 years, and then bought the shop, Super Sports, where I'm presently still stationed. And yeah, I've been fishing pretty much as possible.
Very
most
well.
of the time.
Now, despite your concession that you might fish too much, you're also passionate about the well-being of the resource. Are you ever concerned about a species becoming extinct?
Extinct is a very harsh assumption. I don't think in Namibia a species will come extinct because Namibia's coastline, which is roughly about 1,200 kilometers long, has got two huge marine protected areas along the edges. South of Sandwich Harbour, or south nearly Sandwich Harbour, and north of the Oegapmouth River. River mouth, it's all marine protected area. So you've got a lot of seeding of fish species coming in. When they're depleted in the recreational angling area, you've got seeding taking place. But whereas the cob and the galjoen are very migratory species and will seed the area quickly, the steamers are more sedentary and they don't move around a lot, as we've found out through various tagging exercises. So they have a tendency to be fished out in localized areas. And I'm concerned about the steamers in our recreational area because I've seen over the last 50 odd years how the numbers have declined. When I was a kid, we used to see them swimming in the waves, just the full wave full of steamers. We had them in the lagoon in Walvis Bay, what we call ducklipper steamers over 10 kilos, really big mature fish.
Sure.
And many areas closer to Henties Bay, Jakkalspits and so, there used to be a lot of steamers. You rarely have a good catch of steamers though. You still get some big fish because they're also in deeper water, so they move into the shallows when the conditions allow them to. But there is a concern. And I think Fisheries should have a look at regulation to lower the daily allowed catch of steamers per angler, maybe to 2 fish, not 10 fish.
Is it possible that such an intervention, should it happen, will come too late?
I don't think it will be too late because we still got a lot of young fish in the water, but not. I think our steamer stocks have declined by at least 95% in our recreational area, and that is a cause for concern. So I think the allowable catch limit is too high for steamers. They should reduce the catch limit.
Are you advocating for that?
I am, and I must also add that this is my personal opinion, and there are many anglers that will not agree with me because people like to catch fish, and many people find it hard to put fish back once they catch one. So there'll be a lot of criticism of what I'm saying here, but it's my own personal opinion. It doesn't represent any organized angling.
Let's talk about kabeljou. Has it become the most dominant species here at the coast?
It has definitely become the most dominant species. We've got very good stocks of cob, which you call kabeljou. Over the last 10 years, we've actually seen an increase, I think, in catches and in size. And that's, I think, mainly due to the fact that There are fewer lionfish boats that catch kabeljau. As in the old days when the purseaners often filled their net with cob and say they couldn't determine whether it was bullshit or cob, so they brought a whole deckload of cob in. These things don't happen very often anymore. There's still a lot of pressure on the cob stock localized in Swakopmund because of all the commercial licenses that have been issued. And what is a bit worrisome that there's no size limit at all. I mean, from a 15 centimeter fish to a 1.5 meter fish can be taken. There's no limit to the number of fish being taken out. So that puts a lot of pressure on the localized, on the stock of the cob when they arrive at Swakopmund in summertime. But the stocks are still healthy, and the galjoen stocks are still healthy, also because of seeding. But again, you can see a reduction in size of the fish that you catch, and that is normally an indication of increased fishing pressure on the fish stock.
Now, you called for regulation as far as the daily allowable catch of steenbrow is concerned. Are there any other legislative loopholes that we can perhaps tighten to also take care of kabeljau and galjoen?
As I said, I think the present total allowable catch on galjoen and cob should be maintained as 10 fish per angler per day.
It's just the size that concerns.
Yeah, it's a size that has become smaller, but that's just due to fishing pressure. It doesn't put the stock at risk yet. As I said, galjoen are also migratory at certain times of the year. But the stemmer should be reduced, and I think the total allowable catch per vehicle should be reduced. Because what you have, anybody that has got a permit is allowed to have 10 fish in possession of legal size limit, within the legal size limit. And some people take 6 passengers in the vehicle of varying age groups by license, and then they may keep 60 fish a day. And that to me is a waste. I think if it's 20 per vehicle, regardless of whether 2 or 3 or 4 anglers, that's enough. More than enough.
Now, it's one thing to have a law in place. Enforcement is something else. Is that perhaps also an area that we're struggling with?
Absolutely. I think the enforcement, we've got fairly good laws, but the enforcement is not there, mainly because of financial constraints in the Ministry of Sea Fisheries. I think for that reason also they stopped the taking out of fish, out of cob particularly, south of Walvis Bay between 1st of January to end of March. It has got no scientific merit really, because the same stock of cob are being caught by the ski boats in Swakop. They're all the same, one breeding fish, one breeding population. But it's because they cannot enforce a law. And I think they should review that, because Walvis Bay, and I think Mr. Anjay would confirm that the economy in Walvis Bay has taken a nosedive in the last couple of years. One of the reasons is Walvis Bay used to be a dedicated tourism area for anglers, and especially South African anglers in summer, because the fish were easily available, accessible at parkies, and they could catch the fish and, go home with the fish. Now they're not allowed to take out any more cob. So we have got no tourists coming, no anglers coming, January, February, March. And after the cob run is over, so no people are coming. And tourism we need in this country, and especially Walvis Bay as well. There's a big tourism establishment in Walvis Bay, and at the moment, people are suffering. People are losing jobs, and there's no income, business are folding. So I think the ministry should really take the economy into consideration, Walvis Bay as well. And even if it's only 2 fish per angler per day during the close season now, that would do a lot to increase tourism and help the city back on its feet again.
If we have regard to the challenge of overfishing or the potential of the problem, should we distinguish between onshore and offshore?
Yeah, I think the offshore fishing here, which is not really far offshore, it's almost an inshore boat fishing, they catch a lot of barbel, sea catfish, cob, and then snook at certain times of the year, which this year there has been no snook run, so there's been no snook catches. But they're very migratory, so they don't, the ski boats, the boats don't have an effect on the snook really, on the global population, because it's a circum-global population. With the cob, I think 31 recreational angling license that can take on any fish that they catch is maybe too much. And certainly in the case of the sea barbel, numbers have declined drastically because there's mouth brooders and they're slow-growing fish, so they're much more vulnerable to overfishing. There are still days when you catch a lot, but it's nowhere near the old levels 30, 40 years ago.
So help us understand whether or not there exists a relationship between the seal population and our fishing stocks.
Look, I'm not a seal expert, but I know that the breeding colony number has increased since 1991 to the present date by 73%. There used to be 21 or 23 breeding colonies along the coast, starting from Cape Town to up to Cape Cross, which was the most northerly breeding population. In the last 20 years, there has been a migration of seals generally to the north, even into Angola, at Baía dos Tigres. There's a seal population, a breeding population now. When we first went to Angola to fish 20 years ago, there were no seals. 4 years later, we went back, there were seals. You can actually, it's observable, even for shore angler, how the seals have increased. And the fishery, the whole system, the ecology north of Sandwich Harbour up to the canal is richer than in the south, where there's an upwelling, but it takes time for plankton to grow. So the fish stocks are much higher here. So the seals are also dependent on the fish to feed, and they follow the fish stocks. Now, as the fish stocks have migrated more north, the seals follow. And the natural predation isn't what it used to be anymore. In the old days, there used to be only breeding populations on islands, in non-accessible areas of land. Seals used to be predated even by humans, indigenous population, which doesn't happen anymore. So they have established new breeding colonies onshore, which previously were inaccessible to them because of predation. And that is quite a problem.
Now, traditionally, the 26th of December, Family Day, is known as quite a big recreational fishing day. What are your prospects for this year?
Look, normally on the 26th, over the last 20 years that the bonanza has taken place, the water is normally rough, strangely enough. Why, I don't know, but it's to do with the moon and so on. So the fishing is normally on that date not as good as it usually is over December and January in general. The biggest fish will probably come out in the north, anywhere from mile 14. We caught one last year with a gala event that we had. At mile 14, one cob came out, 22.3 kilos. Another one was caught right next to me by a lady, 18.8 kilo. So there are big fish in the north. The cob this year so far have been a bit disappointing, the catches. Not as last year and the previous years. And even south of Walvis Bay, the catches have been later this year. Almost like in the old days when the stock, the caballero stock, the spawning stock used to arrive here in mid-January, and the catches used to really drastically increase. The last 10 years, it's been much earlier, early December, sometimes late November already, which is a bit unusual. And I think it may have to do with increasing water temperatures, that the migration starts earlier. The water warms up earlier south of Walvis Bay because there is distinct temperature difference of seawater south of Walvis Bay and north of Walvis Bay.
How
much colder.
Is that difference?
It is quite distinct. At Sandwich, or south of Walvis Bay, normally we have like 14, 15 degrees, 16, 17. It can go up to over 20 with when we have a lot of north wind, because you have got the sub-equatorial current moving south and wedging between the mainland and the Benguela current, so the waters warm up. But it's more pronounced north of Swakop than south of Walvis Bay. So there's a distinct temperature difference.
Any final remarks this morning, please, sir?
Any
final remarks, please?
I just want to appeal to all anglers, firstly, to stick to the catch restrictions. Don't overdo it. Take your fish home that you want to eat, but don't overdo it. Stay within the law. And all anglers, and especially the recreational anglers, not the competitive anglers, keep our beaches clean. I see there's been a big increase in rubbish, cartons, bait boxes, paper, beer bottles and so being left lying on the beach. And that's not the image Namibia wants to bring out to overseas countries, anglers that come here for tourism. So please keep our beaches clean. If you bring something to the beach, take it back home with you. And if you take an extra box or empty bottle with you, so much the better.
Wir bedanken uns sehr herzlich bei Ihnen, Herr Walter.
Gern geschehen.
Happy fishing.
Thank you very much.
That was fishing expert and enthusiast Mr. Jorge Walter talking fishing. We'll be right back after a brief break.